Hey, where are you now? I've been home sleeping, but my husband isn't here. I feel like he's lying to me. Let me tell you about when I was pregnant with our first baby. My name is Ashley. 2 years into our marriage, I was finally expecting our first child. I was 9 months pregnant, just a month away from giving birth. I felt excited but also nervous about becoming a mom for the first time. I planned to go to my parents' house that weekend so they could help me after the baby was born. I had told my husband about this idea earlier in my pregnancy, but I wasn't sure if he remembered, so I brought it up again. While I was relaxing and watching TV, he said, "Oh, going to your parents? You mentioned that. If you're going, just go. I can handle things here." His tone shocked me. It felt so cold. I didn't want to argue, so I just let it go. "Okay, I'll leave this weekend," I said. "The baby's due next month, and I plan to stay there for a month or two after giving birth, so I'll be back in about 3 months. Please make sure the baby's room is clean and ready, okay?" "Got it." I would have done it anyway, he said casually. Then he added, "Oh, I can't take you to the station this weekend. I have to work." "Oh, all right," I replied, feeling disappointed. I had hoped he'd at least see me off, but it didn't seem to matter to him. I knew he was busy with work, but I wished he cared more about how hard it would be for me to travel, being so pregnant and carrying so much luggage. I started packing. To make it easier, I sent most of my things to my parents' house in advance. Since I had already started maternity leave, I used the time to clean the house and set up everything for the baby. I was excited about our new life as a family of 3. But when I came back 2.5 months later, the house was a mess. My husband had left drink bottles everywhere and hadn't thrown out the cardboard boxes from his online shopping. I realized he didn't know how to keep the house clean. I had never seen him cook or clean since we got married. I worried about whether he could handle things while I was gone. Still, I focused on getting ready for the baby. The weekend came, and I left for my parents' house. My husband didn't see me off because he was working. While at my parents' place, I emailed him every day and called him every few days, but slowly, he started ignoring my calls. When I finally got through to him, I asked, "You've been hard to reach lately. Are you busy?" He gave vague answers like, "Sort of," or, "Not really." Feeling nervous, I asked, "You're not cheating on me, are you? I've heard some men do that when their wives are pregnant." He sounded annoyed and said, "No, why would I do that? Stop accusing me." I quickly apologized, but I still felt uneasy. It wasn't good for me to have these thoughts while waiting for our baby. I wanted to trust him. A few weeks later, I went into labor. I called my husband and said, "I'm in labor. It usually takes about half a day for the first baby, so if you leave now, you'll make it in time." I felt nervous, but really wanted him to be there for our baby's birth. I hoped it would bring us closer again. But instead of agreeing, he sighed loudly. "You want me to come right now? I can't. I'm tired, and I have work tomorrow." I was shocked. "Work? At a time like this? Our baby is about to be born. Isn't that more important?" He snapped, "Stop it. My job is important. This is a big moment. Sure, but my work can't wait. Can't you understand that? I'm busy." Then he hung up. I couldn't believe it. I tried calling again, but he wouldn't listen. Through the pain of labor, I cried, wondering why he didn't seem to care. From the moment I found out I was pregnant, my baby was my world, but my husband felt so distant. I gave birth alone. The labor lasted a full day, but in the end, I had a beautiful baby boy. He was so tiny and perfect. After leaving the hospital, my parents helped me learn how to care for him. Soon, I could bathe him and handle everything on my own. My parents worried about me. "Are you sure you're okay with your husband? We're concerned about leaving you," they said. Not wanting to stress them, I smiled and said, "I think I'll manage. I'm feeling better and might go back home next week." "Just don't push yourself too hard," they replied. People say recovering from childbirth is like healing after a car accident, but thanks to hormones, I felt surprisingly good. My body healed quickly, and I was getting used to life with the baby, so I decided to return home sooner than planned. While I stayed with my parents, my husband barely contacted me. Even when I sent him pictures and videos of our son, he didn't seem interested. I hoped that once he spent time with the baby, he'd start feeling like a father. That thought kept me going. I decided to surprise him by showing up at home with my parents. It was his day off, so I expected him to be there. I wondered how he'd react when he saw our baby for the first time. After a long drive, we arrived. I carried the baby while my parents brought in our bags. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. "We're back," I called, but the house was dark and silent. "Why does it smell so bad in here?" I asked. When we turned on the light, we were horrified. The house was a disaster. Dirty dishes and half-eaten food were everywhere. Trash and clothes were scattered all over. Moldy juice sat out, stinking up the place. The table was covered in stains, and the bathroom was filthy with black mold. Worst of all, the crib I had set up for our son was filled with trash and cardboard boxes. "This place is unlivable," I said. "We can't raise a baby here." My parents were furious and searched the house, but my husband was nowhere to be found. "Where is he? It's his day off," they said. I began to feel suspicious. My husband had often claimed to work weekends, but he didn't get paid for extra shifts. Something wasn't adding up. I called him. After a few rings, he finally answered. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm at home," he said. "What?" I replied. "We're at home, and you're not here." He repeated. "I'm at home." We had checked every room. He wasn't there. Then I heard something strange, a woman's voice in the background. "I really want you to be here when the baby is born. You can even cut the umbilical cord," I told my husband. I heard a woman's voice on the phone. I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I knew it. My husband was cheating on me. I felt furious. He ignored our baby, let our house become a mess, and now this? I couldn't believe it. I didn't need someone like him in my life, and neither did my son. "How can you live in such a filthy house?" I asked. "Maybe it's a burglar. I'm calling the police." "What? Aren't you at your parents' place? What are you talking about?" he stammered. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Stop lying. You weren't even there when our son was born, and now this? I'm not coming back. We're getting a divorce." I hung up, furious, and called the police to report the burglary. Then I waited at the house for my husband to show up. Soon, he arrived, with another woman. As they walked up, he looked shocked. "Why are you here?" he asked nervously. I pointed at the woman. "Who is she?" The woman crossed her arms and glared at me. "And who are you?" she demanded. I stayed calm and started asking questions. I found out my husband had been lying to her too. She didn't even know he was married. Disgusted, I told him, "Don't touch me. The police are inside checking the house. You can explain yourself to them." Then I left with my parents and baby, ignoring my husband's desperate calls that night. Later, he called again, begging me to come back. "I'm sorry, I've been looking forward to seeing our son," he pleaded. I wasn't buying it. "If you cared, you would have come to see him when he was born. Why are you acting like you care now?" "I'll clean up the house and change. I need you," he said. But I wasn't interested in his excuses. "You should have thought about that before. Go ask that woman to help you," I said firmly. "It was just a fling. You're the one I love," he claimed. "A fling? Were you flinging every time you said you were working late?" I asked. He hesitated, then admitted he had been cheating with women he reconnected with at a wedding. "You're disgusting," I told him. "Were you planning to touch our baby with those filthy hands?" "I'll never do it again. I'll come to get you and prove I've changed," he begged. "I can't trust you anymore. I'll raise my son on my own," I said and hung up. That marked the end of our marriage. 6 months have passed since then. I'm living with my parents while I save money to move out and raise my son on my own. My husband's life has fallen apart without me. He can't keep his house clean and eats out every day, but that's no longer my problem. I'm focusing on giving my son all the love and care he deserves.